like obsession about trying out every single style.
От времен викингов и до наших дней.
Собираюсь пробовать тухлую акулу.
Всем привет! И с вами снова YouTube-канал Mediator, на котором мы разговариваем о рок-музыке и делаем интервью с разными музыкантами.
В этот раз мы решили встретиться с исландским музыкантом Рагнаром Ólafssoном, и поэтому сконцентрировали свое внимание на Исландии.
Вообще Рагнар Ólafsson — это композитор, человек-оркестр, сооснователь группы Árstíðir, участник группы Sólstafir, Slave по моменту. Он бывал раньше в России в составе этих групп, но сейчас он впервые приехал к нам со своим сольным проектом, альбом Urges, и это первый раз, когда проект представлен в России.
Рагнара привезло российское концертное агентство «Спика», и они организовали очень интересную программу с участием музыканта. Дело в том, что в Москве есть клуб под названием «Скандинавия», который одновременно работает как своего рода база для изучения скандинавских языков и культур, а также как площадка для проведения тематических мероприятий, в частности, лекций и концертов. И также у них есть небольшие кафе и бар с подборкой скандинавских кулинарных специалитетов. В этом-то Скандинавия Клаб и выступил Рагнар. Причем сначала он прочитал лекцию об исландской музыке с историческим экскурсом от времен викингов и до наших дней, с указанием на то, каковы вообще особенности, присущие исландской музыке, и какие именно ее характеристики, например, определенная система диссонансов, позволяют говорить о ней как о некоем отдельном музыкальном жанре. После этого Рагнар выступил с акустическим сетом со своего нового альбома. В выступлении принимали участие приглашенные музыканты, с которыми Рагнар познакомился в России. Незадолго до своего выступления Рагнар согласился дать нам небольшое интервью. Также, с разрешения организаторов и артистов, мы записали несколько отрывков из его выступления. В концерте также принимали участие музыканты из России: Александр Гумбарг, Алексей Бойцов и Саша Виноградова.
Thank you for finding time to speak with us. I wanted to start with a question. I read on your Facebook recently, you wrote a post where you said, "As much as I love playing big stages, nothing compares to the intimacy and feeling of a good house show. If you ever want me to play in your house, just send a message and we'll figure it out."
Yes.
So actually, I wanted to ask what were your thoughts about this format in general, because I think it's a whole new, it's a whole different kind of cultural approach. I mean, I understand it means that there are less people and it's very different from the club gig, but I know that you do this kind of performances in a house. So what is there in it for you?
Well, first of all, now I have a solo project, so it means I can travel lighter. When I play with my band Árstíðir, we have a lot of instruments, a lot of gear, and but when I do my solo project, I can appear alone, or like today I'll have a violin player and cello player, but the format is kind of small, so that allows me to play pretty much any stage. I can play a big stage, no problem. I love that too, but I can also just play in a living room. And since I released my solo album in June last year, I got in contact with a really cool booking promoter in Poland, Borówka Music, and he has now booked 3 tours for me already in Poland and Slovakia, and there we play bars, cafes, clubs, but every week there's a few house shows as well, where 30 to 50 people show up. They bring their own drinks, they get cozy on the floor, on the chairs, or on pillows, and I play just a normal concert, but in the living room. And the intimacy is just something, I think, magical for me, but also for the people who show up to the concert, because there's no boundary between me and the audience. The interaction with the audience, I like to speak between songs, and so the interaction with me and the audience happens more natural, and also it's just a more intimate feeling. And also these songs I play in my solo project, the songs are kind of fragile, so a nice quiet setting is actually really good for them.
Okay, yeah.
And so this song is called Della. Turn around, corner and
the music you are playing now in your solo project, and the music played in other bands which you participate initiate. Is that you are now going to deliver a lecture on the Icelandic music?
Yeah.
And how would you say that your music is very much rooted in Icelandic traditional music, or how does it what is the link between them?
Yeah, I think the point I'm going to come across, that will hopefully get across during the lecture, is that whenever people listen to Icelandic music, regardless of style, if it's pop, folk, metal, rock, people tend to hear an Icelandic element in the music.
Yeah.
And what I want to talk about in the lecture is at least my theory of what it is that makes Icelandic music sound Icelandic, even though it's not traditional music. So, in a way, every Icelandic musician is rooted in our cultural heritage.
Yeah.
We grew up singing certain songs that are like Icelandic folk songs, children's songs that have a special tonality called the Icelandic fifth singing, and also the story and the folklores that we grew up with. It certainly influences the soul of the nation, and I think in every nation has a certain feeling, a certain vibe, a certain energy, a certain something that always influences whatever they do. So if you have a rock band in Iceland or a rock band in Russia, at the core you're going to hear some kind of different vibration depending on the cultural context of the creator.
So your theory is that it's enrooted with with your upbringing.
Yes, very much upbringing culture.
And I was actually going also to ask because from what I know, you lived in Sweden and you've been to States, I think, as well.
Yep.
So does that anyhow influences your idea of self-identification and the music as well, obviously, and the way you see the world actually as well?
Definitely. I mean, it's really nice to play here in the Scandinavian club. And first thing I saw when I walked in was a Swedish fika, which is like the Swedish word for having a coffee break with some sweet bread.
We actually participated in one event here where they brought the Icelandic fermented shark.
Oh yeah.
Hákarl, yeah. I'm sure I would.
Did you have the brännvin as well? Did you have the brännvin as well?
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Nice.
Inna was actually very good in that. She ate a lot of that shark. She liked it.
Nice. Oh, you liked it?
Yeah. She did.
I don't like it.
Okay, no.
Yeah, I'll eat one piece every year on the heathen rite of spring, which is still celebrated every year. Although Icelanders are, of course, Christian nation today, they still celebrate this old tradition of the heathen. But yeah, I lived in Sweden for 19 years. I grew up there because my parents moved there to study, and I would think that there's more Swedish in me than there actually is, but it's strange. Even through my childhood and all my friends being Swedish, I still always felt like an Icelander. And I didn't realize that until I moved back to Iceland. So it's strange how strong the Icelander in me, even though I was living in Sweden, how much more Icelandic I was. So it's sort of in my fibers.
And it runs in the family.
Runs in the family, and of course my parents made a good job of always speaking Icelandic at home and keeping me rooted and in touch with Icelandic traditions and values and stuff like that. So yeah, although I lived more than half of my life in Sweden, I'm still, and through it all I was always like an Icelander, an expat.
And United States didn't influence you?
United States, I was a short time. I just had half a year where I lived in Boulder, Colorado. Went to high school, and then I have friends there, so I go there almost every year actually for travels and meet friends. The States is a very inspiring place, but I could never live there. Iceland's always it's like a magnet that always pulls me home.
Med stora strumpor vid revir och husan och
a lot of dialogue, collaborative work with different bands and different musicians, and it's not your first solo project. So it's like kind of two questions. First is like, where does this urge to experiment goes from? Because you kind of experiment with a lot of different genres and different like roles as well. And secondly, like, how do you see this album? Is it like a new turn in your practice, or is it more like you want to like one of incarnations in the chain of many other experiments? Like, how do you perceive it?
I think all Icelanders have this drive to try out many different things, and that's like one of the things that makes the music scene now in Iceland very interesting. Is that most musicians, they will be active in several genres at the same time, and that sort of naturally opens to collaborations across genre borders and a lot of possibilities to make and form new bands. Then me, I'm just very curious as well, and I love music so much, and I love all kinds of music. So I have this almost like a obsession about trying out every single style.
Okay.
At some point, I want to try. I mean, I haven't made a blues album yet, but I will one day. And yeah, before in my lifetime.
Still some things to try.
Yeah, in my lifetime, I want to try it all.
Okay.
And yeah, I studied some classical singing, so I sang some operas. I played some jazz piano. I made some productions for the Eurovision Song Contest in Iceland. I even sang backing vocals 2 years. So, and for every experience, you sort of learn something, and then when you make your own music, you're free to use the colors from all the palettes and make your own mix. And in the last 10 years, 15 years, I've been more rooted in rock and roll and metal. I have a lot of metal bands, and then Árstíðir, the indie folk band, became my biggest project. We played in Russia now 5 times. And but the Urges album is completely different, and the way it happened was not planned this time. It's just it's a breakup album. So I just ended a relationship with a girl. I was very much down, depressed, and my only way to cope with it was to write songs. And the way these songs came out and the way they sounded, they didn't sound like anything else I was doing, and the songs didn't fit into Árstíðir or the other bands that I have. So I had a whole album worth of songs, and so I thought, well, okay, just to make a solo album. And it was maybe, I didn't think about any plans with it. I just wanted to make this album and get that off my chest. But then I started touring with it, and now the album is living, well, this project is living its own life. And I've written another album. Actually, I've got 2 albums in the making. So.
Oh, wow. Do you mean 2 simultaneously?
Yes. I spent a month on the Mississippi last year visiting a friend, just going down the river, and I wrote songs every day. Came home with 30 new songs. So
Mississippi influenced it, or just
yeah, well,
place?
Life in general, travel is a good way to get inspired. The first album is going to be called Mississippi, and the second one's going to be called Needle and Thread. So it's
And when are they out?
Mississippi will be out this year. And yeah, so the solo project is living its own life. It's got its own momentum now, and I'm really happy to have this outlet. Árstíðir is releasing an album this coming June, so the second half of this year is going to be a lot of playing and touring with Árstíðir, and then I'm just going to fill in the gaps with my solo project.
you're playing quite a few instruments in this album, and like in general as well. Which one is your favorite, and which one you used to write songs?
So the instrument that I know the best is singing.
Okay.
And I'm an okay piano player, so I'm a much better piano player than I'm a guitar player. But when I write songs, I like to write them on guitars. And I think the fact that I'm not a very technical guitar player, it helps me to write the songs. Because songwriting, when you're not arranging, songwriting is about storytelling. And it helps to let the story come out. So the harmony and the melody, you can put the focus on that when you don't have to think about technique. And I even prefer to pick up like really old guitars, even bad guitars, because they have a story to tell. There's a story in every instrument. And sometimes if you have like a really good Martin guitar that sounds perfect, maybe the perfection of the instrument can get in the way of the song. Because songwriting is about, especially in my solo project, it's about the beauty and the imperfection. And I like the lo-fi. I like to sort of, especially in this project, to search for lo-fi stuff and play with fragile stuff. And on Urges, I even wrote a song on the banjo. I never played the banjo before.
Yeah, I've read about that actually. Yeah.
I just I woke up one morning and my brother had a party in my living room. And so somebody left the banjo,
really?
And I picked up the banjo, and I didn't know any chords or even the tuning of it. So I just put my fingers somewhere and started like picking on the banjo. And within minutes, I had this melody come to mind, and then I wrote down some lyrics, and the song was just ready in a matter of minutes, maybe half an hour. So sometimes writing a song on an instrument that you don't know can open up interesting song ideas.
So, but the banjo actually inspired you.
Well, there was a song waiting for me in the banjo.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you said you were a jazz pianist.
Yes, I played jazz piano for a while. I mean, I'm not gonna profess to be a jazz player, but I love jazz. So, with my my limited skills as a piano player, I managed to play some jazz standards and did that for one winter in a little jazz cafe.
Perception of improvisation?
I love it, but the thing is, for many years I had this wrong idea that I had to be a really good at an instrument. So I sat down and tried to practice to master some different skills, but it never really worked out for me. But then I figured out that what I do best is write songs. So now I don't really worry about technique anymore. I just play whatever comes to me, and that's something I can believe in, and luckily people like it, so I'm going to focus on that.
How did it all started for you in music-wise? Because I know you have a professional education, right?
Well, a little bit singing I have, yes. So I studied classical singing, and then I started to study some Danish technique called complete vocal technique, and which was really that really changed a lot for me, because then I had the tools to create any sound I wanted with my voice. And when you're a musician, in the end, especially if you're a musician writing your own material, the most important thing is to find your voice. So technique is just a way to help you find your own sound.
I guess everything started for you even before you went to study.
Of course. When I grew up, my mom had a piano at home, and I took some piano lessons, so I learned some classical pieces, which is really helpful, because then I have the motoric skills in my fingers. So now I can play the piano without thinking about where to put my fingers. They will just, find their own way.
Right.
So that's really good. And then in high school, I had some bands, rocking bands, where I played the organ. But my main objective in life was always to become a writer. And that's why I moved back to Iceland to study literature and start writing books. But when I came to Iceland, very quickly, I got to know all these great musicians, and that's when my affinity for starting bands really took off. And now I'm a musician.
Did you write anything?
Yes, I wrote two novels, but they were never published, and in hindsight, they're actually quite bad.
Okay.
But it was a nice experience.
Well, yeah, but I think it's it's one of the things which you can always start.
Maybe I'll write a book one day.
Yeah.
But I mean, now I'm writing songs, and at the core, book writing or songwriting is just storytelling.
Yeah.
So I'm right now where I want to be.
I raise my glass to my darling, will become my face. The show is on. I'll do anything it says by the look of things. You cast the spell that made it all go south. There's a dozen around me, but only one story of how we became to be. You, it's me. Oh, you're perfect and I love your dialect. You cast a spell that made it all go sour. I just made it last another hour. Trust me, I've seen both sides. Through all the different segments. I know what is wrong from right. I learned by the way you're failing, and I am.
You're quite familiar with a lot of contemporary, I don't know how to say, devices of techniques, which are, for example, you have a YouTube channel, and Árstíðir became had a very big breakthrough when they had a YouTube video uploaded of this performance in Hamburg, and also you did a Kickstarter campaign for Árstíðir, and also you did I think some crowdfunding campaign for this album as well.
Yeah.
So what is your perception because on the one hand, it's a technique which makes everything sort of easier in the music world, in the music industry. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, it's this eternal question of whether nowadays you can't really sell CDs or something, and you have to make a living from the gigs. Mm-hmm. And what is your perception of this contemporary process? That's the one question, and the second part is do you think a musician can make a living without making gigs nowadays, or? at all?
Well, I'm going to answer your last question first. No, you have to play live.
Right.
So in the new music climate, it's good for the public because more musicians are on the road playing live gigs, and I think the music is meant to be played live. It's a living thing. The album is just one side of it, but really you should always try to hear music live. That's in the nature of music, and that's why it's called live, because it's living. But the problem has always been for musicians to make a living from their art. And in the old days, you had the label system and all that. Today, you don't have that as much. So, which is great because we have more artistic freedom. And like, if you want to make an album and you don't have the money for it, you can through Kickstarter or like any of these crowdfunding campaigns, you can make an ambitious campaign and prepare all sorts of rewards and get the money you need to make the product. And it's also a great way for to connect with people, because not only are people helping with money, they get invested in your product. So when they get the album in their hands, they will feel more invested in it, and that's a way to tie your public, your fans, your listeners closer to your creation. And there's no middleman anymore. It's just the musician talking to the fans. And that's a beautiful thing that I think should definitely be celebrated. On the downside is that this takes so much time, and now in the social media days, there's no end to the possibilities you have to get your music out there. But the problem is still, when are you going to have time to write the music? If you spend all your time on social media or preparing rewards for crowdfunding. So in the end, the crowdfunding campaigns that I've done 3 now. In the end, the workload of those campaigns is tremendous, and if you count the money that comes in and the amount of hours you put into working, then it's just ridiculous. I mean, so once again, you're always doing this because you're passionate, and somehow you have to sort of just find a balance between being a creator, creating music, and then on the other side being your own promoter, trying to promote yourself. And that's a problem every musician has to face.
Is it a good thing? I think it's.
Like I said, it's I think it's in the end it's a good thing, but still we live in times where musicians are having a hard time getting money for their art. Maybe it's always been like that. So it's not a perfect system, but here I am in Moscow playing the Scandinavian club. So I couldn't be happier.
Okay, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
For the interview. Thank you.
Thank you.
Спасибо, что были с нами. Подписывайтесь на наш канал. Ищите нас в социальных сетях и увидимся не ровно через неделю. Пока. Пока.
После этого можно сказать, что вы пробовали самое страшное, что есть. Очень хорошо, что вы нас. Вы не точно легализуете баночку. Я собираюсь пробовать тухлую акулу. Говорят, что ее делают месяца по 4, вылеживая в каких-то контейнерах с дырками на кусок акулы, пахнущий немножко кошачьим лотком. Очень интересно, что же будет дальше. Немножко забьем нос и далее. Ну, в таких ситуациях, наверное, надо просто положить его. Нет, всего лишь кошачий лоток, все такое.